Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a silent game that's being played with the money in all of our wallets. It's a high-stakes game of devaluation with some really serious consequences, so let's get right into it.
So let me start by asking you this. What actually happens when a country's money starts to fail? It sounds kind of dramatic, I know, but for hundreds of millions of people around the world, this isn't a hypothetical. It's their everyday reality. The real question is it a warning sign for the rest of us? All right, to really get a feel for what this looks like, our first stop is Iran. What's happened there is a pretty stark warning of just how wrong things can go. I mean, the scale of the collapse is just staggering. The Iranian rial is now literally worth less than the paper it's printed on. It's so devalued you can't even get a single US dollar for it. Just try to imagine that for a second. For 90 million people, the money in their bank accounts, in their hands, it's become effectively useless.
And look, this isn't some isolated case. Not at all. We've seen this same pattern play out all over the world. You've got the Venezuelan bolivar, the Argentine peso, the Turkish lira, the Egyptian pound, the list goes on. All told, well over 100 million people have seen their savings wiped out. It's the same story again and again.
So, the analysis we're digging into today frames this in a pretty stark way, as a kind of systematic pyramid scheme. Now, the key takeaway here is that this isn't about one political party or a specific ideology. The idea is that this is a built-in flaw in the system that just keeps popping up, no matter who's in charge.
Okay, so it's really easy to look at all of this and think, well, that's just a problem for emerging markets, right? That can't happen here. But the data tells a very, very different story. This trend is a lot wider than you might think. Let's take a look at the Japanese yen, for example. Now, if you stop measuring it against other government currencies, what they call fiat, and you instead measure it against a hard asset, something real, like gold, a very clear picture emerges. It's just a consistent and actually accelerating downward trend. And it's not just the yen, not by a long shot. The euro, when you put it up against gold, shows the exact same pattern of decline. It's the same downward slope, just a different currency.
Okay, what about the big one? The US dollar, the world's reserve currency. Well, guess what? Same story. When you measure it against gold, you see the same pattern. It's undeniable. So the critical question becomes, when the money itself is losing value, where do you go?
And that question brings us to our next point. As faith in traditional currencies starts to wobble, people, and I mean everyone from regular folks to major institutions, they're all starting to search for shelter, a safe place to park their wealth.
And this is where it gets really fascinating, because we're seeing this huge split. Two completely different strategies are playing out. On one side, you've got everyday citizens who are running towards decentralized digital assets like Bitcoin. On the other side, you have the world's central banks, and they're stockpiling gold, one of the oldest assets known to man.
Okay, so why the different strategies? Well, for you and me, gold can be kind of tricky, right? Especially if you're in a country with a collapsing currency. It's heavy, it's hard to move across a border, and it's pretty easy for authorities to just take it. Bitcoin, on the other hand, it's digital, it's borderless, and it's a whole lot harder for someone to seize. And if you want proof that people are actually doing this, just look at this number from Iran. An estimated 88% of all Bitcoin mining there is done illegally. This isn't some small group of tech nerds. No way. This is a massive, grassroots movement of people bypassing the official system, risking penalties, all to protect what they have. They are actively walking away from their own currency. All right, so if people are flocking to Bitcoin, why are the central banks all in on gold? Well, the argument is pretty simple. They know. They know the fiat system that they themselves manage is on shaky ground. They're not just buying gold as some safe investment. They are strategically loading up, preparing for a fundamental shift, a whole new monetary system.
And that brings us to the global chessboard. This worldwide currency devaluation isn't happening in a bubble. It's setting the stage for a new kind of conflict, a monetary war that's going to be fought on a new digital battlefield.
So according to this analysis, here's how this could all play out. We're in phase 1 right now, global devaluation. But the next key date to watch is 2026. That's being called the start of the Great Tokenization, a massive push to turn all kinds of assets digital. And the US is expected to lead the charge with its own digital dollar. So here's how the major powers are lining up for this new game. The US strategy seems to be a digital dollar backed by its own debt. China, meanwhile, needs to make its digital yuan more attractive, so they might offer things like interest payments, or maybe even back it with gold. And then there's Europe. They seem to be lagging way behind.
facing what this analysis calls an existential crisis.
Yeah, this really puts Europe in a tough spot. A very tough spot. As the rest of the world barrels towards its new digital system, how is the continent going to respond? What's their next move? From here, it looks like Europe has two choices, and they are polar opposites. Path number one, the hard path, is to completely change course, deregulate, cut the red tape, and actually foster some real economic growth. Path number two, well, that's the easy path. Just double down on control, prohibit, restrict, and manage the decline.
You know, actually creating real economic growth, that's hard work. It takes tough political choices. The much easier path, politically, is to just tighten your grip on the system you already have. So the prediction we're looking at here is that Europe will likely take the path of least resistance: prohibition. And what's the end game of all that control? According to this analysis, the final step would be capital controls. Basically, rules that stop citizens and businesses from moving their own money where they want, when they want. Which leaves all of us with one massive critical question. As our current money system weakens and governments race to create these new digital currencies, are we heading towards a future with more financial freedom, or are we walking into one with way more control? That's something we all need to be thinking about.